Okay, welcome to tonight's study session for our midterm exam. And we'll just start off first, just kind of discussing the test and when the test will be, and we'll take a look at the practice midterm as well. So I'm going to head over to the syllabus section inside of Canvas, and then um, as you can see, we have, if I scroll all the way down to the assignments, um, it says that the midterm exam is due Wednesday, May 10th, but if you click on it, it says that you cannot take this test until May 9th. So it's actually going to be open on Tuesday, May 9th, right at midnight, and it closes on Wednesday. So let's get clear on that. So the first thing I want to talk about just is the time. So May 9th, that is Tuesday. And right at 12 midnight, so the beginning of the day, the test opens. And on May 10th, just as you would expect, the test closes. And this is happening right at 11:59 p.m. And so what's happening is we get this 48-hour window. And within that 48-hour window, you can take it just one time. So that's kind of to answer a lot of questions about when to take it. It is just like the homework, or similar to a quiz. You simply just go in, you take it. You should have access to StatCrunch. It will look similar to the practice midterm exam. All right. Now, one thing I do want to point out is basically what sections are going to be covered on the test as well. So I'm going to pull that up and make sure that I have the latest information for this. So I'm gonna actually go in and take a peek at the test real fast. Let's see here. We're running a little slow, but it's okay. All right, so it's actually just 15 questions. All right, 15 questions. And see if I can And I have it set for 150 minutes. Okay, so that's basically 2 hours plus 30 minutes. Plenty of time. That's an average of what? That's an average of 10 minutes per problem. It's a pretty good deal. You should have plenty of time. There's an abundance of time. And the learning aids will be StatCrunch and the textbook only. Those are the only 2 items that you will have access to during the test. Now, if it is interrupted by any chance, and you get locked out, message me about that. And you should be able to get back in, no problem. All right. So right now, I'm going to write out the sections that are covered. I see, so out of the 15 questions, I see 1 question from 1.1, 1.2, another 1.2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.2, 2.4. There's a 3.1. Okay, I see a 5.2, 5.3, 1.3, 5.1, and let's see, 3, 6, 9. I might have to erase this. So we have a 2.4, 3.1, 5.2, 5.3, 1.3, and here I put after the 1.3, there's a 3.4. And we have a 5.1, 3.5, and I'm missing something. Okay, there's actually 2 1.1s. Okay. That rounds out the 15. So I guess I can put it in another way. We got 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.2. From chapter 2, so actually another 1.3. Okay, I didn't get this right. 5 questions are coming from chapter 1. Chapter 2, it looks like we have 2.1, 2.2, another 2.2, and a 2.4. From chapter 3, there are 3 questions, it looks like. Let's get rid of the 2s. Chapter 3, it looks like we have a 3.1 and a 3.4. And then chapter 4 doesn't appear on here at all. Maybe it will be on the final, I don't know. But for chapter 5, it looks like we have 5.1, 5.2, and a 5.3. Oh, there's actually another 3.5 there too. Oh, why I missed that one. And for chapter 5, we have a 5.1, 5.2, and a 5.3. So that's 3, 6, 4, 5. Okay. Perfect. So that's our total 15 questions. These are the sections that the questions are coming from. This should help you prepare. Obviously, you want to make sure you're good with chapter 1. You want to make sure you're good with chapter 2. Chapter 3 is here. I think chapter 3 is a really smooth and easy to understand chapter. And then make sure that you're good with chapter 5. These questions can be anything, so just be ready for them. Chapter 5 was not on quiz 2, but it is a good section, and we can look at some of those practice problems that come from chapter 5. And also, if you had any questions about the quiz 2 or anything of that sort, you can mention it, bring it up, and we can discuss it. So the next thing I would suggest is to look at the practice midterm. All right, so to access that, there's a lot of different ways we can go. We probably can just click on a module 3, I'm thinking. Oh no, it's actually probably not even in there. We could go to either assignments or, yeah, I'll just go to click on assignments. Scroll down to the practice midterm. 50 questions on the practice. It is not worth anything. It may give you a grade, but don't freak out. That grade is not going to be averaged in at all. I've set it to 99 attempts in 600 minutes just so that it can stay open for you. Okay, I didn't know what else to do. So obviously the actual test will only be 15 questions in 150 minutes, but this is just practice for us. And the test will be just 1 attempt, not 99. So I'd suggest just clicking on there and giving it a go. We can do a couple. It's a little frustrating doing it inside of, so the stat lab process, it's embedded inside of Canvas, and sometimes you're restricted this little window. And I understand that is a concern. That is a frustration. But you can also click inside Stat Lab and access it. I'm going to go to the next question. I'm going to hop around a little bit. Well, almost seems like I should just answer this one first before I even hop around. Let me see if we can. Information that describes characteristics of an individual. And that really sounds like the definition of what data is. I'm going to put it there. Allow classification of individuals based on some attributes. Qualitative. Has either a finite number of possible values or a countable. That would be a discrete variable. Has an infinite number of possible values that are not countable. Continuous. The characteristics of individuals within a population. Say variable. Provide numerical measures of individuals. The measures can be added or subtracted. All right. They had to go somewhere, so just fill it out. And a blank is a person or object that is a member of the population being studied. So it's not sample, it's not statistic, it's really between individual and a parameter. But a parameter is more of a numerical measure for the population, whereas an individual, this seems like more of a correct answer, but this question doesn't seem that good of a question, honestly. I'm just going to answer individual. I'm not being graded on this, so it's okay. Now, one thing I would suggest you do is submit the test, and what you can do is print it out with the answers. So right after you submit the test, you have the ability to review the test. Let me make sure that let me pull this up properly. One second. So when you choose print, now this is what I mean. When you go to settings, choose print, you can print the test with the correct answers and your answers. And probably it might be a good idea to just print it to a PDF document. All right. It takes a while. I can choose letter. I can save it as a PDF with my print. All right, let me worry about it. Oh, I probably could have, just, since I have OneNote open, I probably could have just printed it to OneNote. That's an option for Windows. Oh, oh yeah, I have to cancel. So let's go to cancel. Yeah, probably, hey, why not just print it to OneNote since I have OneNote open already? All right, my OneNote is filled, so I don't know if I'll actually print, but there we go. I decide to print it here, and voila. I now have the entire practice midterm test with the answers, and now I can work outside of the computer. Because keep in mind, the practice midterm exam is going to close. And let me make a note of this. I just want to be clear. Practice midterm closes May 8th. That is Monday at 11:59 p.m. It's set that way, and I'm not going to change it. But that doesn't mean that you can't keep studying and working on it. What if you want to take the test on Wednesday and you wanted to use Tuesday to study more? Well, I would suggest making notes for the practice or printing it out like I just demonstrated. So we can review that I will also point out that in the files section, I actually have a PDF copy under uploaded media. I have a PDF copy of the practice midterm exam, and I actually have one for the practice final as well. But for this case, we're looking at the practice midterm. So we all have it. It's right underneath our noses. It is similar to what we just talked about. Okay, it's a little hard to see. I mean, but you could probably print it out or, modify it somehow. But it is there. You do have access to the practice midterm after it has closed. All right. So let's just go through some more practice problems. Some of these are really good questions. I don't know the types of final exam questions that'll be on there, but I do know the sections that they're going to be on. Will some of the questions, the final exam questions, come from the practice? That remains to be seen. I don't know. I can't guarantee it. But it will be probably your best study guide is to know how to do the problems from the practice. I know it's kind of an obscene amount, and there's 50 questions, but I would eliminate the questions that are not on the sections that we're not going to have on the test. That could cut down your load. That might chop it down from 50 questions to probably like 30 questions or 40. And then it's just a matter of figuring out, identifying the question and what section it comes from. Like a question like number 12, for example, determine whether the study depicts an observational study or an experiment. That comes from chapter 1. 50 patients with diabetes are divided into two groups. One group is treated with an experimental drug. The other is not. After 1 year, both groups are questioned about their blood sugar levels. Is this an example of an observational study or an experiment? And one of the stipulations for being an experiment has to do with the fact that you're controlling one of the variables. And the moment you begin to control one of the variables, it now crosses over into the boundary of an experiment, because now you're designing a certain type of structure. Observational studies, though, there are plentiful types of observational studies. But this is clearly deep. Okay. Let's see. Skew to the right. We talked about this. If the right tail is longer, then it's skewed to the right. All right, this is all pretty basic right now. A lot of chapter 1, 2 type of questions I'm seeing. Let's try to get toward the end. And all right, now this type of question is actually really good. When it comes down to working with z-squares, I expect you to be an expert on that. Oh, well, actually, no, this isn't the question I'm thinking of. But I guess what they want you to do is probably just find the corresponding z-score and then compare it. That could potentially be a pretty good problem to do. Suppose baby's born after I don't know why they're saying a gestation period. Hopefully they're not referring to human babies in that way. It's just a pregnancy. You don't have to say just gestation period. It sounds a little bit more scientific. But okay, um, babies born within 32 to 35 weeks have a mean weight of 2,700 grams and a standard deviation of 800, while babies born after this period of 40 weeks have a mean weight of 2,900 and a standard deviation of 405. If a 35-week gestation period baby weighs 3025 grams and a 40-week period baby weighs 332.25 grams, find the corresponding z-scores and then compare them to determine which baby weighs more relative to the period that they were born in. And you can do that by comparing their z-scores. Now, the mean for, if we talk about the first 32 through 35, the mean was 2,700. And I'll just put X bar. And the standard deviation was 800. And then for 40 weeks and higher, the mean is 2,900 with a standard deviation of 405. Now, our X, and I'll put X sub 32 through 35, was 3025. Our X for 40, so the X is representing some data point, some individual in the data. Here's my panning tool. I like the panning tool. Now I can just grab the paper and get it right where I want it. All right, let's get back. The X value for the 40-week is 3225. And so what they want us to do is to calculate the z-score. And the formula for the z-score is X minus X bar divided by S. We have to compute this value for each of our X's. So the first one, the test statistic, the z-score, would be X represents 3025 minus the 2,700. And now we're going to divide that difference, the difference in their weight, divided by the standard deviation. This will be a positive z-score because they're comparing a number that's bigger than the mean. How much bigger based on the standard deviation? That's the question. This number is also bigger than the mean. So we need to compute this value. Probably the best way to do that is using a calculator. I'm going to pull up my calculator here. I realized that sometimes I should switch to view. I don't do that enough. Why won't I? Go back. Here. There. Now it looks more like a calculator. Let's see. And now I can just do 3025 minus 2700. And I'm going to divide that answer by 800. Still positive. I get a z-score of 0.4. Where did that go? 0.40625. And now we're going to calculate the z-score for this data. That's 3225 minus 2900 all over the standard deviation is 405. That standard deviation is a lot smaller. That's really going to change the values a lot. So now we got 3225 minus 2900. Divide that by 405. And we're getting a z-score of 0.8 something. So I could just stop. I don't think I need the exact value. I can answer the question based on what I've done. Find the corresponding z-scores. I was supposed to calculate the z-scores. Which baby weighs relatively more? Whichever one weighs more is going to be the one with the higher standard deviation, which means it is further away from the mean relative to its group that it's being compared to. So the 40-week baby will relatively be more. The z-score was 0.8, and that's larger than the z-score of 0.41 for the baby born in week 35. So we have C, and that's reasonable. That seems very reasonable. I think this is coming from chapter 4, maybe, and chapter 4 is not even on the test. We'd have to double check that though. Probability will be on the test, more than likely. I think that's chapter 5. Let's take a look at 47. A test to determine whether a certain antibody is present is 99.3% effective. This means that the test will accurately come back negative if the antibody is not present. We got 99.3% of the time. The probability of a test coming back positive when the antibody is not present, which is a false positive, is 0.007. So together these make up one whole. It's either going to be positive or negative. It will either be true or false. Suppose the test is given to 4 randomly selected people who do not have the antibody. What is the probability that the test comes back negative for all 4 people? So first of all, these guys do not have it. So it's supposed to come back negative. And so the probability that it's going to come up negative for one of them is 0.993. It's 99.3%. But there's actually 4 people. And these are independent. So wouldn't we just multiply the probability of each one to calculate the probability of all 4? And we can also rewrite all of this as 0.993 to the 4th power. That I mean, is it that easy? Let me see. 0.993 to the 4th. I got 0.972. 0.972. Okay, that does seem reasonable. Okay, but they did say to round to 4 places. 0.9723. The other question is, what is the probability that the test comes back positive for at least one of the 4 people? All right, so that's a little different. And notice how it has that at least one. And whenever you're calculating the probability of at least one of something, I'll just put in quotes. The way you can do that, the way you can handle that, because this could get a little crazy with at least one. I mean, the fact that there's 4 and we're talking the probability of at least one. The best way to handle the probability of at least one is to calculate the complement. So do 1 minus the complement of at least one is none. And we're subtracting that from 1, and that gives you the probability of at least 1. So for them to say, what's the probability of at least 1 being positive? Well, what's the probability that none are positive? Which also means if none are positive, that means they're all negative. And we just calculated that probability. So wouldn't the answer just be 1 minus part A, 0.9723? And I can do that by doing 1 minus the last answer. 0.0277, and that is the correct answer. This is a chapter 5 type of question. It's a good question. Well, there's a formula that says the probability of E or F, this probability is always true, is equal to the probability of E plus the probability of F minus the probability of E and F. Now, sometimes this is 0. Sometimes. In this case, it isn't. Now, we know this one. They told us it's 0.6. Probability of E, 0.55. Plus probability of F, minus 0. We're trying to find the probability of F. Well, we could do a little bit of algebra. Let's combine some terms. If I subtract 0.1 from 0.55, I get 0.45 plus the probability of F, and that's equal to 0.60. Now I'm going to subtract 0.45 from both sides. You're getting 0.15 is equal to the probability of F, which is what they have. So I took the equation that I had. This equation always works. And I just substituted what was given to me and solved for the unknown, what they were asking for. So we took a seemingly difficult problem and then simplified it and made it easy because we knew the formula. All right. All right, I didn't want this to go too long. I'm probably going to wrap it up here if there's no other questions. I'm going to check the chat if there's any, if we have any chats. But what I will do is post, I will provide other links of some of my other reviews in the past where I went over more questions from the review. And you can also message me, and I could make more videos on the different problems. But one thing I would suggest is, again, going into the discussion section and going into helpful random homework problem videos. I have homework problem videos from 3.2, 3.2, 3.2, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 6.1, 6.2. Oh, nothing from chapter 5. Nothing from chapter 5. Nope. Quiz 3 exposed, and something from homework 4. Maybe is it quiz 3 exposed? Who would be working on quiz 3 and needing 4.3? This could be quiz 2. I don't know. No, I think it is. I think it is quiz 3 now that I think about it. Well, at any rate, we do have some helpful homework problem videos if you got stuck on some, and I can always make some more as well. So feel free to message me when you are ready to study this